When was cricket's golden era, or is it now?
Golden era is brown.
So the first golden era was supposed to be in the early 1900s, sort of the end of Grace, Ranji, Hobbs, Trumper, all mixing together. But if you go back, it's 3 white teams and a lot of county cricket, right? Like, I don't think we can...
But is that was that decided 50 years after that it was the
No, I
golden
think
era?
even at the
Or was
time...
it at the time, everyone was like...
I think at the time, what had happened is cricket had gone from people averaging 20, having a good career, to averaging 40 and 45. We had 3 teams.
Uncovered pitches.
Yeah, so, well, they were still uncovered pitches, but without getting too much into the agriculture, muck spreaders had been invented, so we didn't have little chunks of crap on the pitch. We had liquid manure, which meant the pitches were flatter. Yeah. So people started making more runs. And South Africa beat England, of course, twice. So suddenly you have genuinely 3 teams who can all play.
So you got competition for the first time.
And the cricketers, well, like, you know, if you think of Grace and Ranji and Trumper and Aubrey Faulkner and Jimmy Sinclair, like there was just a good crop of interesting personalities and cricketers.
I suppose as well, Britain still had an empire.
Yeah.
So the relevance to Australia beating England or South Africa.
Well, so the Boer War
was that much.
There's like a gap in cricket where South Africa don't play, and it's the Boer War. Right, so they play right up until the Boer War, then they have a war, and then Boer War finishes, and Test cricket starts again. Like that's how much it was all interacted. So you can imagine people in South Africa, it meant a lot when they were playing.
The 50s must have been a golden era as well. You're coming into...
So World War II has just finished.
Yeah, just
problem
people
with
are
the 50s was the
flocking.
cricket.
Yeah.
The problem with the cricket, it was like people were scoring at like 2 runs and over. No one could make any runs and no one could take any wickets.
But if you look at the pictures, the grounds were full.
Yeah, the grounds were full.
Absolutely, with people in collar and tie and a suit and a trilby watching, probably with a pipe.
But if you go back and you read the articles and listen to what people were saying, everyone was like, Test cricket is really struggling. No one wants to watch it anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
was that mirrored at county game as well? Was it slow scoring there?
I don't think county, I'd have to go back and have a look. I don't know if county was that bad, but basically part of it was we had defensive bowlers because you could have as many fielders as you wanted down the leg side. And so people would bowl in swing to the pads with like 2 leg slips, a fine leg and a deep backward square.
But there was nothing else to watch in sport. You either watch football or you watch cricket. There's nothing else to do, go shopping or...
So I think the 60s probably, and a lot of this is because the West Indies become quite a dynamic side.
Right.
And England and Australia got good in the 60s. So you have 3 really good sides. You also have Pakistan coming through, you know, like having Fazal Mahmood go from not playing cricket to taking all those wickets. So I think there was an element there. But really, I think if we'll take your question about modern cricket away just for a step, I think the real era is the 80s. And I think it's a really important one because essentially West Indies, Pakistan and New Zealand are the 3 best teams in the world, and England and Australia are fighting for everything. India win a World Cup at that time, and we get the rise of Sri Lanka, which ends up into the 90s.
World Series cricket, when did that come in?
And Bumble was playing.
And Bumble was playing. I mean, a lot of people talking about Bumble.
Yeah, still.
No. What did the guy say when you made your 200? How much longer?
How much longer? Yeah.
1977 is World Series cricket. I would say through to about 1996. I think that's a fascinating era of ODI World Cups become really big in that period.
Is 20 years too long for an era?
I'm more than happy to just take the 80s. I think the 80s is fascinating.
When was the rise of India?
83.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Right in the middle of that.
So the 80s. That sounds like a good.
I would happily,
so you've got.
I do 83 to 96, right? Because 83 to 96, you have India and you have Sri Lanka winning.
And England
and West Indies.
And of course.
And England were rubbish.
The great rivalry is actually being played.
India-Pakistan.
Yeah. In fact, you can't have a golden era when India and Pakistan are not playing. I would argue.
Is it fair?
When did they stop playing? 20 years ago? No,
less than that. But about 14 years ago, yeah.
So John, going back to you, I started in 1965.
Yeah.
County cricket is really suffering. And a couple of years before, they've decided to play a 1-day competition, 65 overs per team.
They rinsed you guys.
And it's you know, and with no restrictions, you put everyone on the boundary. So white ball cricket, as we know it, because that was red ball at the time, but 1-day cricket has been modified all the time and squeezed and made better organised with fielding restrictions. So if you look at cricket right now, as you mentioned, is it vibrant? You know, I think cricket in England is very vibrant. But I think that cricket in the UK, it's got its problems, but it's very vibrant. I go to a lot of league cricket, club cricket. Unbelievable the amount of kids that are running around and playing and participating and being organised. And so now you've got to have, in local club cricket, you've got to have a women's team. You've got to build a women's team. And it's vibrant.
That's a very good point, because, of course, you could say that the golden era of men's international cricket was what was the years?
83 to 96?
83 to 96. But, of course, the whole game shifted now. So whether you like international cricket or domestic cricket, it's kind of irrelevant, I suppose. But this could be the golden era for women's cricket. Well, it almost certainly is. And it could be the golden era for domestic cricket as well.
Yeah.
It's just international cricket that it's not the golden era.
Also, you know, so we go back to the 70s, right? So you have Sri Lanka coming through. Denmark is obviously, you know, building a really good team. Canada are on the verge of test status, and Holland are coming through at those
Netherlands,
times. Yeah. Now you have Rashid Khan beating England in World Cups, right? Like it's gone so quickly. You have the Thai women's team. You have the Japan under-19s team. You have all these stories are coming up. You know, Oman and Papua New Guinea and all this sort of stuff. It's hard to look at that and be like, it isn't a more romantic time now, because people. If you're good at cricket from a random country, you're probably going to end up in a major league, or you're going to end up in a World Cup. That wasn't the case ever before, right? So you could be a great cricketer from Mexico. There's all these stories of like great cricketers from Fiji and Mexico, but their teams weren't very good, so it didn't matter.
There's a lot of cricket in France. A lot of cricket in France.
There isn't a lot of women's cricket in France.
No, there isn't.
Because they cancel the leagues and just pretend. But there is a lot of cricket being played in France. Look, right across Europe, Germany has lots of cricket, right? And you know, we're seeing the European Cricket Network and all these things springing up, and you know, they're playing cricket in Denmark again.
Where's Blowers moved to? Blowers has moved.
He's France, isn't he?
No, he's Cyprus.
Is it Cyprus?
I think he's got a team over there that he's befriended.
Also, I suppose the golden era of cricket. So when I grew up, the 80s, you couldn't actually watch a lot of it.
Yes.
So I'd watch all the home summer, and then I wouldn't watch any cricket from the end of August until the end of May, beginning of June.
Satellite TV came in what, 91?
Yeah.
That was when it was invented.
The first overseas televised tour was 89-90, and it was England's tour of West Indies. Very famous series.
Televised by
Sky. That was their first, Sky B.
Sky B.
And that was their first ever overseas tour, and it was a very famous one. Well, England went 1-0 up in the West Indies, and it was mentioned in Parliament. It was that big a deal.
You know, Adam Zwar, he's the Australian comedy writer who made Wilfred, the big show that they made in America and everything. And we were chatting to him I was chatting to him about his book about the 99 World Cup. It's a really, really cool book that he's written. We realized like all the way through that like neither of us saw most of the games. Because we saw the Australian games, but you didn't see that much of any of the other games. So it's a Cricket World Cup, and we literally saw Australia play and a couple of other maybe key games as they came up. And so our memory of that World Cup is completely around our side. Whereas if you're a cricket fan now, you might not even remember your team's game.
So is satellite television, has it been good for cricket?
I think it's globalized the game. I think, look, the two big differences were, and satellite cricket comes along, and then straight after satellite, a satellite and cable and all that stuff comes along, Cricinfo comes along, right? Mm-hmm. Those two things happening in the 90s means that suddenly you can tell, you know, what Rahul Dravid's record is.
There's an explosion. There's an explosion of cricket in the winter.
What about you, Bumble, as someone who played the game through the 60s and 70s and early 80s to become a coach and an umpire and a broadcaster? Right. What was your when you sit back? What was the bit? Like, looking back, you think, wow, that was the best bit. 5-year period or 10-year period, not necessarily playing. I'm not asking you to compare.
No, it wouldn't be.
Playing,
it wouldn't be. It'd be.
What was the time
from a commentating point of view?
When was the game in its rudest health?
Early 2000s onwards.
See, that's another
just
fascinating.
2005. You know,
you talking just England, or are you talking everywhere?
I'm trying to think just everywhere, because, you know, Sky at that time were hoovering up everything abroad. Yeah. So we as a commentary team were going everywhere, and the grounds were packed. They're absolutely rammed. And that is being broadcast back into the UK. So, you know, you debate that you've got to pay for it if you want to see it. Well, that's the way it works. Satellite television, you've got to pay if you want to see it.
Unless you're in India, of course, in which case it's a different model. You don't pay, you just have a lot of adverts. But
yes,
that period
but we
there,
can't have adverts because of Ofcom.
But that period there was not one that we just discussed, but actually it was not only did you have these iconic series, which we still talk about, VVS and Rahul Dravid batting throughout the day, winning a game after following on, that incredible series, 2005 Ashes, but also there were some amazing series in and around that time. 04-05 England tour of South Africa, 03-04 England tour of West Indies.
Also, you have
Australia being so dominant
you have
and
you have Kenya making the semi-final of the 03 World Cup.
Yeah,
the women's cricket starts. That's when women's cricket comes onto TV as well.
The greatest ever West Indies, well, arguably the two greatest sides of all time. Well, not even arguably, the two greatest sides of all time. West Indies and Australia overlap for a couple of years. Yeah. You have this period, and crucially, it's before we reach saturation point, when it's cricket kind of becomes like football's doing, elevator music. It's always on, but are you actually watching it? So actually, that's an incredible bit. South Africa was so strong.
Well, also South Africa coming back, Zimbabwe.
Sky have now backed off, haven't they?
I didn't mean to mention Zimbabwe on this show.
No, I'm fine with Zimbabwe. Everybody bangs on about that. I'm from the north, it's how it is, it's how I speak. And I very quickly apologise if I've offended you. It wasn't meant to be that way.
But that's
it's just
also,
how it is.
They were, like, by 1999, Zimbabwe's a great story in cricket. I know by 2003, they're a terrible story in cricket.
What a team they had.
Yeah.
They had a super team.
You know.
The Flowers,
and Bangladesh
Brandes,
as well.
So again, Bangladesh.
Captain Campbell, they had a good side. Streak, what a team. Brian Strang, Paul Strang, Brian Strang.
We have just forgotten something else as well. T20 cricket kind of started.
Yeah, 2003.
2003.
So
2003.
And the IPL started.
But again, now when you're talking about saturation, you mentioned saturation right now, but it's very evident that Sky have backed off. They're not bidding for that much. You can't see that much.
Well, they have changed their model, that's for sure. But that's kind of irrelevant, isn't it? Because if they don't show it, and they may actually do Pakistan, it'll be somewhere else. All this story about blackout for England tour of Pakistan, it won't be a blackout.
It never is. It's right.
It'll be somewhere. If you can watch Oman versus USA, you'll be watching Pakistan. England.
The broadcasting companies will hardball right to the last minute, and then it'll just happen right at the last minute.
Golden era of cricket was 1983 to 1996.
Yeah.
2003 onwards for me. Yeah. But
I was
everywhere. I was everywhere.
You're always everywhere. You are the golden era.
You're all over the place.
No, well, I wouldn't be now. I mean, I watch Sky now, and I think, well, I'm glad I'm not in that. Don't want to be part of that. It looks really hard work, whereas it used to be fun. Used to be out and out fun.
Have you contacted Corky about his work in the mascot race?
No, has he? When's it? Corky?
It was Corky running around with the mascots, wasn't it?
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
I
thought you could have sent him notes on how to handle mascots.
Oh, crikey, no. I mean, I used to dread that. I had no idea what they were. Like, there's Nuts the Squirrel. Do you remember that fella? He comes as an aeroplane, Spitfire. So he's at a big advantage because he's got his feet. And it was great fun setting off that mascot race and not knowing. I have no idea what they are. That's a giraffe. I can see that, Lanky the giraffe. There was Carmen and Hugh Bear. Come on, you bears. Oh. Carmen and Hugh Bear. There's one bloke dressed as a pear. That's Worcester. I mean, unbelievable.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.